is up, sexy people of the internet? It is Dave, it is Duncan, back from Metal Epidemic for another album review. For this review, Duncan and I have been checking out the new album from Newport Noir Pop Quintet tonight. The band's new album.
You're aware that people might not know what the fuck you're doing.
If you know, you know. All right. The band's new album, Fire in Heaven, will be released on February 14th via Venn Records. So, Fire in Heaven is the follow-up to the Nightmares 2023 debut album, Seance. The uniquely dark stylings of this record saw the Nightmares forged as one to watch in the UK's alt underground, their cult status propelled by icon in the making Will Gold of Creeper, guesting on a track, and the likes of Kerrang proclaiming they have coffin loads of promise. Fire in Heaven, had to quote it, Fire in Heaven as a whole delves into the idea of love lost and the enormity of the universe at large. Themes range from mythical siren songs to extraterrestrial life via the complexities of true love and an overarching questioning of your own existence. Guitarist Adam Parslow explains of the record's title. The name for the album is taken from a quote from Jazz Coleman of Killing Joke, who was speaking glowingly of the sound produced by the late great guitarist Kevin Geordie Walker. The quote really resonated with us as a band, and we felt it fit perfectly captured the mood of the new songs. The record explores the curiosity between the struggles of human existence on Earth and the weight of what might else be out there in the wider universe. With the addition of a second guitar player since their debut, the Nightmares were able to expand the scope of their approach to songwriting, emboldened to explore sounds more grandiose than ever. The album was recorded, produced, mixed and mastered by Richard Jackson, who has recently worked with From the Left, The Automatic and Dub War. Richard also produced the band's first album, Seance, back in 2023. So, the Nightmares, not a new band for us. We actually saw them live back in 2023.
That was supporting Creeper, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was on the Creeper tour. The Clyde Rooms, I think, in Glasgow.
That's where it was, yes. Mm-hmm.
But even before that, our good man Ross from Metal Epidemic made us aware of the Nightmares and their debut album, Seance. I don't know if I'm going to mention it. Live was an interesting experience.
Yeah, it's worth saying I liked them on album.
Yeah,
I thought they had a particular sound that kind of worked for me. I think I compared them to they were like a more goth to White Lies, which I really enjoyed. They were obviously really looking forward to Creeper, but I was like, if their support, this could be great. And then we saw them live, and Sugarly Peg is what they would say where I come from, Dave, on a Sugarly Peg.
Sugarly. I think they were hindered a little bit by opening band sound, which was a little bit rough out the front. And I think they may have been experiencing some maybe monitoring issues, possibly.
Yeah.
There were moments in the set that I was like, oh, it's maybe a little bit off.
Vocally, it's worth saying. Not like musically, the band were tight, but the vocals were in the wrong key at times, and just not. And even the backing vocals were not cutting through like they should.
It makes me think it's probably something in ear or monitor wise, possibly. But it was also like I think this is probably down to the venue. Maybe I've never seen them anywhere else, but they were very cramped on stage.
Yeah, it's also like this is the first time we'd been at that venue, and it was a weird venue.
It was.
And yes, they were cramped. I would say they're cramped on stage, but then Creeper made full use of the stage, and Creeper has just as many members. So
I think there was a lot of Creeper's
stuff
gear on stage as well when they were on. So there was no movement on stage. So like for an opening band, it felt a little bit subdued, I think, for me.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
But we now have a new album.
Yes.
From the Nightmares. What did you think of album number 2 from the Nightmares?
So I'll put my cards on the table. I think this is a monumental jump up commercially. right? I feel like this will shift units. You know what I mean? There's a lot that the kids are going to like about this, right? On the flip side of that, before we even start talking about things, I do feel they have traded in some of their sound,
right,
for something a little bit more commercially viable.
Okay.
That's a fair statement to say, I don't know. But to me, this kind of feels like songs have been crafted as singles, where on the previous albums, it felt like the previous album kind of felt like songs were created as songs. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like, I will stress this, all the choruses on this are singable. Like, very, very, very singable. Very memorable, very catchy. And there's plenty of ins and outs on the album as well. There are moments where a keyboardist, backing vocalist, chick whose name I can't remember, very much like Creeper, I did wonder if they were coming off at any point.
Yeah, forgot I had them on there.
Alarming to do a review where you're just like staring at me like you're a character from They Live. But yeah, like when she comes into her own kind of Creeper-esque and does more fronting on the vocals or has a more prominent place and doing kind of harmonies or even taking a focal point in a harmony, I think that opens our sound up so much more, and it's very, very well and strategically placed in this album. Like there's never two songs side by side where that's happening, and as a result, there's a really nice flow, an ebb and flow to this album where it just kind of works its way through. There's also attention to detail on those kind of higher energy tracks. I'm not going to say high energy. None of the songs on this are high energy, but kind of higher energy tracks juxtaposed with those quieter moments are really well spaced through. So from a compositional point of view and from a marketability point of view, I think this is, this is going to shift. It's going to do really well for them. And it's kind of like, feels like a band kind of coming into a sound that will sell well for them. Where I think they've lost a little bit is that I think I was aware of influences on the previous album, but I would say I was aware of them. On this album, I hear them. Like there's a lot more focus, and I was saying to you before we started that I was going to try my hardest to get through this review without referencing specifically Alkaline Trio, but moreover The Cure. And it's really difficult, and that's just two bands. Trust me, there's a shed load of other bands whose influences are all over this, and they're more prominent in their sound. Now, I'm going to say that's not necessarily a bad thing, because I don't think any of their versions of them are watered down versions. I think, for example, when Siren Song kicks in, which could literally have been written by the Alkaline Trio, right? And when it kicked in, whilst I got that vibe and I got that sound, and definitely sounds like, I didn't think it was a lesser version of. Sometimes when bands co-opt a sound or an influence, I'll be halfway through a track and I'm like that. Oh, I've not listened to that album in years, and then I switch off what I'm doing and I go away and listen to that album and forget to come back. Never got that, you know what I mean? But it's there. It's hard not to recognise that. So without spending a huge amount of time talking about other bands it reminds me of, I think vocally it's a very strong album. I think it's full of hooks, it's full of atmosphere. I think pacing-wise it's really good. Element that's best on this, can you guess? Can you guess where I'm going with my favourite element on this?
Yep.
Keyboards, yeah. The synths on this are like fucking phenomenal. Absolutely brilliant. They were really good on the previous one. On this, they fucking shine, right? Really, just the use of sounds, the placement of them, the actual position in the mix, and the fact that the band are happy at times to let it be the driving factor. It opens, and then you have her vocals over the top. That opens up so much of their sound that I kind of, that was the bit I fell hardest for. I was like, that's what was the element missing for me on Seance, as it was in there, but it wasn't like Creeper used them, but Creeper used them in a very clever way. And I'm not saying they're like Creeper, it's just, we've mentioned them already. Creeper used their synths in a very interesting way. where it is either as a driving thing towards almost like what the bass guitar's doing, where it's doing something to carry the beat and then comes in on the chorus. On this one, there are whole tracks where the synth part is essentially guiding the melody, or adding that kind of almost 80s element. I love The Cure. In there as this like kind of really uplifting, bright or somber addition to their sound, and it's fucking wonderful. It also allows the guitarists to be a little bit more playful. Like they don't have to be strumming fucking chords all the time. Instead, they can go off and do a little bit of lead work themselves, or they can play off each other. And I think once again that just makes them sound a lot more interesting. So I think in terms of growth of sound, that's the biggest growth for me, and it's the one I think they should continue developing. It's also, and I mentioned the White Lies earlier on, I love the White Lies, right? I unabashedly love the White. I know a lot of people don't love the White Lies, and I don't care. But the White Lies, from the very start, they're a three-piece band, and on stage there must be a four-piece band on stage. I've seen them live as well. There must be a four-piece band on stage because there's keyboards in every single song. Front guy plays guitar. They're like Muse, you know what I mean? Like, the front guy plays guitar, they've got a bass player, and they've got their drummer. But every single song is laden with synths. And the longer that band has went on, the more the synths have become integral to the sound. Being added to, being layered up, being beefed out, more ideas, more expression. And on this second album, the Nightmares have done the same. It's like kind of leveled up, expanded the sound, added more to it. So yeah, I was like a pig in shit with this. I'd like genuinely smiling from ear to ear with the synths. I think it, like, as a second album, I think it's super strong. I think it is better than Seance, right? I will say though, it's better than Seance, but that comes with a price. And that price is if there were a more individual sound that you enjoyed from that, some of that's been polished off in favour of, like I said before, writing more commercially viable songs, of which this album, there's at least 5 or 6 songs that could easily be singles on this and do very well for them. Like, comfortably very well. And also very different as well, like showing different aspects of the band, which I kind of love. I think overall, I think I would like to have heard maybe a little bit more of that kind of roughness carry over from them. It's not going to... This is not a genre of music I spend a lot of time listening to, so I'm not qualified to sit there and lecture anyone on anything. And it will, like, this is the trajectory that will make them huge, in the same way that a band like Creeper that we mentioned before are huge now because they have changed aspects of their sound. You go and listen to 3 albums before the album they released last year, and very different, right? Yeah. And I get the feeling the Nightmares are on the same trajectory. I think they're doing a similar sort of idea and kind of bringing more out, working with bigger people, spending more time crafting their songs, letting more of what it is they enjoy about music shine. And it's on full display here. I don't think it's a perfect album, but I think it is going to be a big album. That's how I feel. I feel like if they were touring smaller venues, and I noted from the press thing we got in, which was a stream, which I hate, but we'll live with it. There was a mention of a few venues. None of those venues looked particularly big. And when they came to play their headlining tour after Creeper, they were playing a smaller venue in Glasgow than the one they were playing, obviously supporting Creeper. I don't think it's going to be a year before there's a UK tour and it's much bigger venues. Like, I feel they're poised for something big, without being all punny like Kerrang. I think they've got plenty of stuff to show, and I'm curious. I would go back and see them again because I would love to see them in a different venue, a different sound, and see how that would translate over live. Because like you say, our taste of it wasn't. It was just a little bit off, and it kind of sitting with me uneasily because of that. So that's my thoughts overall. I think it's going to be big. It's going to be huge. I don't love it, but there are elements that I really, really enjoy. Particularly the kind of back and vocals, and moreover the synths. The synths are just they're a joy to listen to, and they're the picture perfect way of using synths in a band like this. So that's what I thought. Right, Skeptical Dave, the sunglasses are off. That means fighting business, fighting words coming out. How did you get on with this?
So, firstly, I really like the concept and the kind of aesthetic of this album. So, for people who don't know, the album follows a character called Blue, which you get a kind of introduction to on the videos that they've released so far, which touch on kind of 4 key elements of alienation, exploration, self-love, and fulfillment. The videos, Duncan, you're going to love, are inspired by the band's love for 90s cult TV shows, X-Files, Twin Peaks.
Oh yeah, like literally all the stuff that I was watching while everyone else was getting laid. Amazing.
Yeah. And also Donnie Darko as well as a
cool.
big influence.
Yeah. That's all my wheelhouse.
Yes. All the videos have like a blue hue to them.
A blue hue?
A blue hue. Yeah, so like the tones and the colour palette is all shades of blue and black, basically. All the photography for this album, promotional photos, the artwork, also blue and black. Now, if you're familiar with the band's previous album, Seance, you might remember it was entirely red and black.
That's right.
Again, all the videos, the photos, the artwork, all that. So I'm loving the fact they're continuing on with the kind of colour theme with this album. And again, it signifies like a change and a kind of new era of the band. And I definitely feel like this is a new era of the Nightmares. The last album, Seance, was written during COVID. So for this album, you're talking now like a good 3-4 years of growth, of maturing as songwriters, gelling more as a band. And that comes across in a huge way on this release. Musically, it has a little bit of the character of Seance. There's still parts of it, it's not you're going to listen to something like, this doesn't sound like the Nightmares. It still sounds like the Nightmares. But for me, there's a very clear, natural progression on this release of the band's next kind of phase musically. For fans of the old stuff, there's still like touches of goth and like that. The first single, Something in the Dark, has the spooky vibes in spades. And the 80s character is still very much apparent throughout this release, especially in the synth work and a lot of the vocal melodies. For me, though, there's a couple of big things that I really enjoyed, big differences on this release. Firstly, it's kind of crazy how much an additional member can change or can alter the sound.
Bizarre, eh?
I think adding in that second guitarist, just kind of like just opened up the possibilities for the Nightmares, both musically and sonically, because these songs just sound much bigger, like way bigger than the songs that were on Seance. And that comes through in the additional layers of the guitars, where it just sounds thicker. There's more kind of like backbone to the tracks. Stuff like Letting It All Go has it's got the Alkaline trio. We've got to mention that kind of like Alkaline trio, kind of alternative, kind of punk kind of punch to the album. But you've got the darker kind of pop side on the melodies on like Beneath Your Name, and that's evoking elements like The Cure and Killing Joke.
There's a little bit of Birthday Massacre on it without the heaviness, if you know what I mean.
Birthday Massacre.
And there is there specifically the way the guitars that kind of lead that bow do 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 do. Yeah. Well, that's very Birthday Massacre. It's just not detuned like they detune.
Yeah.
And it is you don't get that without two guitarists. You know what I mean? Because one's leading and you've got the rhythm underneath it. So. Yeah,
I think the layering of that has been done really well, and I think it really elevates the sound in all the right places on Fire in Heaven. Vocally, you could kind of say the same thing. You're used to like the layering and contrast between the vocals, and they use that really effectively, where the two tones are kind of working in harmony on tracks like Dead Roses, which almost has like a kind of Sixpence None the Richer kind of vibe to it. Runaway, where you've got like Eleanor's doing like a lot of kind of like echoing of Adam's vocal parts instead of them being like in unison all the time. But I think vocally as well, I think it's another step forward for the band. I feel like the hooks are better. I thought some of the vocal ideas or like rhythmical choices on Seance were maybe a little bit overused. I didn't have that as much of an issue on this release. I think they have tried to make sure that the tracks have more individuality. especially in the vocals, and I think it makes them stand out much more. I had like a bunch of melodies kind of like swirling about in my head after just a couple of listens to this album. Like yourself though, I love the synths on this album. They like the 80s have never sounded better on this release. The synth sounds I think they've used are really cool. Like there's a lot of kind of retro stuff, but the production gives it a more kind of modern kind of like coat of paint almost. Hell Is Gonna Happen I thought was just so good. Like I love that track. It has that like post-punk kind of The Cure, Joy Division, but then some of the synths and the vocals I was like, that's a little bit kind of churches as well at times. Like there's a real kind of mix of different eras on it. And like similar to what I said about the vocals, the synths just had another layer of distinction to the tracks. Sometimes it goes more gothic, sometimes it goes more ethereal or 80s or more pop laden, but I felt like they felt much more significant on this release, and I think they brought something that really lifted the tracks in the right way, rather than just being like a background layer or
100%,
something to thicken them up. It felt more distinctive. I don't have a huge amount of negative things to say about this. I think there may be a couple of tracks that didn't like grab me as much as the rest, where the hook maybe wasn't quite as like potent as some of the others. And I felt like Blood on Your Hands and Winterlude, I don't know, I felt like they were maybe like too close together maybe.
Yeah.
I think if it was me, if it was my album, I maybe would have like separated them out slightly more. They're both quite kind of minimalist tracks, and it just felt maybe like, I don't know, like just a weird kind of transition between those three tracks. But like very small gripes, to be honest. I think I much prefer this to their debut. I think the band have leveled up in their songwriting since the debut, and produced a much more memorable release with this album. So yeah, I agree with you. I think it's only a matter of time before these guys just step it up to that next level. I think they are going to get just bigger and bigger as time goes on. So what do we think scoring wise for Fire in Heaven? What are you scoring this one?
So that's an interesting one, because we never scored the previous one, did we? Because we never formally reviewed it.
No.
And thinking about what I would review that now is going to be difficult, because I originally really liked that, and I probably would have come in with about a 4 on it. But now, in the shadow of this release, which I think is a better release, I would give this a 4, and I'd probably give the previous one, I'd mark it down, like, because not because it's done anything wrong, it's just being compared to another version of the band now that I think is just like better. So I'm coming in on a 4 on this one. I think this is going to get a lot of traction this year. I'm fairly confident about this. There's just so much of this that you could play again and again. I could chill. I could do nighttime driving with this. You know what I mean? Very, very, very comfortable. I could, easily shove this on and just like sigh. You know what I mean? Just like take a load off. So for that reason, but I also think they're still a young band. Like they're a really young band. And it's a big jump. It's not like in terms of just quality and release and all the rest in a short amount of time. Like who knows what the future holds? But an exciting band, certainly, for sure. I mean, once again, there's like the UK is leveling up almost genre by genre now, where bands are starting to come to the forefront where you're like, you're gonna be big. Like, and I think they exist in that kind of alt punk pop world where I think they've got plenty to offer. So I'm coming in with a 4 on this one.
Yep, I'd agree. 4 out of 5 for me as well. I think this is a step up from the previous album, and I think like the jump between this one and the next one again is just going to be another step up for the band. So I'm really looking forward to hearing what they do next, and I would like to go back and see them live again, headlining this time, so we can get maybe a longer set, more kind of variation, and something they've put together for a headliner.
We're wearing
I would really like to see that. 100%.
We're interviewing them and wearing sunglasses as well. Might as well, if we're going to go in with a gimmick, you want to explain at the end here why you wore sunglasses. Because once again, there's going to be a lot of Americans that watch this that will not have a fucking clue why you were wearing sunglasses.
The vocalist, Adam, we clocked, like when we saw them live, he was wearing shades like the whole time, the black shades. I was like, oh, that's cool. Like, he looks like he's got a thing happening on stage, you know, with the kind of accessories and stuff. Then we saw him afterwards, like kind of wandering about, and the venue was pretty dark, still wearing the shades.
Yeah,
they just seem to never come off.
I think I think it's the gimmick. Yeah. Either that, or for all we know, he's got photosensitive
maybe
eyes. Yeah. Can't physically burn his retinas out.
Maybe he's blind, Duncan. Maybe.
Maybe he's Stevie Wonder, Dave.
Could be.
Maybe. Yeah. We don't know. Don't know. Although he did pack away his guitar, which makes me think he's probably not. So
he's faking it. So that is The Nightmares, Fire in Heaven. Comes out on February 14th on Venn Records. Links below to the band, to the pre-order. Check out, have a listen, see what you think. That is the review. Thank you for checking it out. We'll be back with another review very soon, but until then, take care. Speak to you soon.
Bye.